Hello and welcome to Lego Piece Theater. I'm your host, Ontario Jones, and that's the eponymous Lego Piece. Now I know what you're thinking. Ontario Jones? That sounds like a ripoff of Indiana Jones. Well, it's not. Ontario is a province in Canada, while Indiana was named after his dog. It's completely different. Anyway, today I'll be doing an unpopular movie review. That is, it's the review that's unpopular, not the movie. The latest Star Wars movie has been out for a while now, and I keep hearing about how great it is. It has a 90% plus Rotten Tomatoes rating at the time of this video, and it's made over $1 billion at the box office. Everyone seems to like it, but I'm going to tell you why I don't in 3 parts. In part 1, I'll do a quick overview of the problems with the plot. In part 2, I'll assess the characters as they are shown to us. And finally, in part 3, I'll talk about what I would have done differently. The first thing I noticed was that the plot was the same as Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Not similar, the same. Episode 4 started on a desert planet with a reluctant hero, so Episode 7 starts on a desert planet with a reluctant hero. Episode 4 had the hero teaming up with a character with a shady background but a heart of gold, so Episode 7 has the hero teaming up with a character with a shady background but a heart of gold. Episode 4 has space Nazis, so Episode 7 has space Nazis. Episode 4 has Obi-Wan Kenobi, an old wise man with a mysterious personal connection to the bad guy Darth Vader. Episode 7 has Han Solo, an old wise guy with a mysterious personal connection to bad guy Kylo Ren. Episode 4 had a Death Star, X-Wing fighters, and a trench run, so Episode 7 has a Death Star, X-Wing fighters, and a trench run. And so on. They're adapted screenplays that are less similar to their source material than Episode 7 is to Episode 4. Now I get that it's supposed to be fan service, and normally I don't have a problem with a bit of fan service. But this is a lot more than a bit of fan service. It's a complete rip-off of Episode 4's plot. If Disney didn't own Lucasfilms, it'd be plagiarism. This was the biggest disappointment for me. The similar plots, not the lack of plagiarism charges. I was expecting the next chapter in a story. Instead, we were giving a retelling so faithful, it made the entire film feel bland and formulaic. You know the beats and what will happen, so nothing's a surprise. A bigger Death Star? Didn't see that coming. You'd think these idiots would clue in that building bigger and bigger planet killers is not working. It certainly isn't cost effective. But the real sin of this recycled script isn't the identical plot points or the fan service, but the laziness of the storytelling. There are bits of bad writing hidden away in the familiar folds of the plot, so audiences will mistake their pre-existing knowledge for setup. Let me show you what I mean by referencing just one part of the movie. And to prove I'm not cheating about which chapter I picked, I rolled the dice. Don't believe me? There it is. About a half hour into the movie, when Rey and Finn first meet, they're attacked by stormtroopers who are looking for BB-8. They try to run. 2 TIE fighters swoop in on them and they're forced to take to the sky in the nearest ship available, the Millennium Falcon. But why were there TIE fighters at all? Weren't they interested in retrieving the map BB-8 had as opposed to destroying it? At the beginning of the movie, the Order stormed a Resistance outpost with ground forces looking for Poe and the map instead of just raining holy hell on them from above. It was so important to retrieve the map that Kylo Ren showed up in person. So why didn't the First Order do the same thing here? Even if they weren't interested in retrieving the map anymore and wanted it destroyed, using TIE fighters is not a very efficient way to go about doing it. Peppering the ground from above with laser bolts is great for indiscriminate damage, but lousy if you're trying to destroy a tiny chip in a droid. No, the real reason the Order sends in the TIE fighters is because we need Rey and Finn to get off of Jakku, and to jumpstart the plot. Leaving is not something Rey would have done on her own. She wants to stay in Jakku. She even wants to return to it after the dogfight ends. So the only real way to get our heroes off the world is to have the plot force them off, even if it doesn't make any sense. The audience doesn't notice because that's what happened in A New Hope. Audience expectations cover the whole. Han takes Luke aboard the Millennium Falcon, and they leave Tatooine. Notice they even have Rey echo Luke's line about the Millennium Falcon being a piece of junk to make doubly sure the audience is aware of exactly which plot point they're at. This way, the audience mistakes the familiarity and love they have with A New Hope for setup in The Force Awakens. Why did the heroes leave the planet? Because that's what happened the last time. It's supposed to happen. Then, after Rey and Finn have downed the TIE fighters, Finn wants to take the ship and flee. But since he can't pilot it, he needs Rey too. But there's a problem. Rey doesn't want to leave Jakku. In fact, her first instinct is to turn around and go back. So what do our Finn do to change her mind? He lies and tells her he's part of the Resistance. Then he gets BB-8 to reveal the location of the secret Resistance's base. This changes Rey's mind and she agrees to fly Finn to the Resistance base. Why? To return the droid to the Resistance? Problem is, Rey didn't care about BB-8's mission until the Resistance was mentioned. Even after they managed to shake off the TIE fighters, Rey still wanted to wait on Jakku. If Rey had cared about BB-8's mission, she could have dropped Finn off on a planet of his choosing, then gotten the location of the Resistance base from BB-8 herself, and flown on without him. It's Finn that BB-8 is resistant to giving the base location to anyway. The only reason Rey wants to help now is because she has to want to leave Jakku, the way Luke did when his aunt and uncle were crispified. It's something we know should happen from our familiarity with A New Hope, so we're expecting it's going to happen here, even though there's no logical reason for it to. That's just 2 examples, but they're hardly the only ones. Ultimately, the biggest failing of the plot is that it's a rehash. I felt I was watching a remake rather than the next installment, and frankly, that kinda sucks. I know everyone on the internet is going to hate me for this, but fuck it. Kylo Ren is a whiny little bitch. Wait, no, sorry, not that yet. I dropped my cue cards. Here we go. Rey is too good at everything, and as such, there's no tension to her conflicts or arc to her character. Now, I know there's a lot of people online who are using a certain term to describe her. A term you might be familiar with if you read fanfiction or hang out on TV tropes or something. A term that is largely seen as pejorative to a lot of people. A term I'm refraining from using because of all the baggage it comes with. So instead of using that term, I'm just going to call her Rey and talk about the problems I have with her character. Now, if you're one of those people who can't take criticism of a character you like in a movie you didn't write, then I suggest you stop this video right now and, I don't know, go look at pictures of cats or something. You're not going to enjoy this. While I may be an emotionless lump of plastic, I still want people to enjoy this video. That's why I put it on YouTube. Because otherwise, I would have settled for ranting angrily at my cat, drunk and alone like I do every other night. Now, if you're still with me, I'm going to assume you have an open mind, or at least drunk and alone, and are willing to hear me out to the end of the video. If you still disagree, fine, you're wrong, but I can live with that. Okay, so back to Rey. First off, everything she does comes to her a little bit too easily, which sort of makes it hard to care about any of the situations she's in. Need to escape some dogfighting TIE fighters? Rey's an ace pilot. Need to resist a mind probe by the main villain? Rey's so strong with the Force she can not only resist, but turn it around on him. Need to defeat a foe in a lightsaber battle? Rey can do that too. There's nothing this spunky desert dweller can't do. And in a space epic like Star Wars, that's boring. Let's compare this to the first movie. No, not that one. Yes, that one. At the beginning of A New Hope, Luke isn't very good at anything. He only uses a lightsaber during a training scene, and his only use of the Force is at the climax when Obi-Wan Kenobi coaxes him into trusting his reflexes over an onboard navigational computer. That's it. Luke's only real skill in A New Hope is his piloting abilities, which he leans on like a crutch. Most of his fighting is even done using a blaster, and by fighting, I mean running away from stormtroopers while shooting back. Come Return of the Jedi, and Luke has learned the Force and become a competent lightsaber wielder too. But the important thing is, he didn't start here. Now let me be clear, it's not that Rey can't be good at these things, but having her good at all of these things at the start gives her no place to go as a character. What they should have done is give her a few strong skills to lean on, then let her develop the rest as the stories go on. You know, like an underdog hero. Keep this in mind, because I'm going to come back to it. For now, let's move on to the latest Disney princess, Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren is a whiny little bitch. Mind-bogglingly, this seems to be intentional. He whines and cries and throws temper tantrums and dresses in black and has daddy issues and wants to be like Darth Vader. I'm sorry, but wanting to be Darth Vader is a dumb motivation, especially the way the movie portrays it. Now, I haven't seen episode 8 yet, but I have a feeling that a lot of Kylo Ren's real motivation is going to be some kind of parental abandonment issue that manifests itself in him wanting to be powerful like Darth Vader. Hence, he turns to the dark side. But there's 2 problems with this. One, Kylo Ren started learning about the Force from Luke, the Jedi Knight who bested Darth Vader and brought the Empire to its knees with the power of love for his father. Did Luke never tell Kylo Ren what Yoda told him? That the dark side is not stronger? 2, Darth Vader was redeemed in death and returned to the light side. A fact that Luke would have undoubtedly mentioned if he talked about his father at all. So then why would Kylo Ren want to be like Darth Vader and hate his temptations to turn to the light? Apparently he wants to kick puppies not because he actually likes kicking puppies, but because he wants to like kicking puppies and is just going to kick puppies until he acquires a taste for it. Confused? I know I am. Now I'm not going to question the joys of puppy kicking. I'm sure it's the bee's knees. But most people tend to need a little more incentive than wanting to be like Hitler to commit genocide. It'd be nice to know what that was for Kylo Ren. I mean, we're talking about a character I assume is going to be redeemed eventually, right? It would kind of suck if killing billions was just the result of teenage angst. Of all the new characters, my favorite was probably Finn. This should come as a surprise to no one. He's basically the character audiences are supposed to identify with. Rey has a mysterious past, so it's hard to identify with her thus far secret motivations. And Kylo Ren just wants to be an asshole like his granddad. I mean, some of us might be assholes like our granddaddies, but we tend to reach a little deeper for our motivation. Finn, though, was just a workaday schlub. As a stormtrooper, he hated his job and his boss. He was sick of doing such soul-crushing work. Sound familiar? I hate my job too, and most days I don't even have to kill anyone. Finn's also genuinely opposed to injustice. Which is nice because he's the good guy, but also because we, too, are genuinely opposed to injustice, even if we don't have time to do anything about it. I mean, I'd fight injustice myself, but who has the time? I did like that Facebook post about income inequality, though. Share and like this video if you agree. Hey, these things are important, people. Anyway, since he doesn't quite know about the Resistance or the Force, Finn also serves as the audience's stand-in when it comes to exposition time. My only problem with him, really, is they didn't take his character far enough. Making him a former stormtrooper gave him a lot of potential for growth. He's already hated by the Order for being a traitor, but they could have made him hated by the Resistance too, because he's a former stormtrooper. It would make him feel conflicted and isolated. Those are emotions people can understand. But no, as soon as the movie gets a chance, Leia tells everyone how happy the Resistance is to have the help of former stormtroopers. Like that's somehow a thing they get or something. It's like the writers got bored of Finn's vastly more interesting character traits and decided to just drop him as the focus so we can get on with the whole dumb blow up the Death Star ending. Now that I've gotten all that out of the way, it's time I talked about what I would have done differently. For this part, I'm going to talk about what the movie did, then what I would have done differently. Now truthfully, if I were writing this movie, I never would have rewritten episode 4 and called it episode 7. But since rewriting an entire movie is not something I want to tackle in this review, I'll just focus on making the episode 7 I did see flow a little better and closer to what I think was intended. That means I'll be focusing on the characters since the script is largely the same already. First things first, motivation. I'd explain the First Order's motivations better. In episode 4, the bad guys are the Imperials. Their motivation is simple and easy to understand. They want to keep the Empire from falling to the rebels. It's not important how they became the Empire or why Vader is a part of it, because that happened in the prequels. Okay, it happened badly in the prequels, but that's the setup. As of A New Hope, all that matters is that they are an empire and that they want to preserve it. But with the First Order, it's not so clear. We're told they want to revive the empire, but we're not sure why. And this is a painful omission because it omits Kylo Ren's motivation. Remember, we're not going to see episode before 7, but after 6. So we need to know why Kylo Ren thinks the way he does, especially since he's willing to commit genocide for it. Really, all it would take is one simple scene to explain why the First Order wants to reform the Empire. Put it in the crawl for all I care. Maybe they had it better under the Empire and yearn for stability and privilege once again. Or perhaps they are the hardest hit systems during the Empire's collapse, so they feel betrayed by the Republic. Something that seems to be a fundamental wrong. One that a young, naive, and confused Kylo Ren could get behind. Something to tempt him toward the dark side. An ethical quandary. And this brings me to our villain. Kylo Ren lacks a lot of the basic motivations of a movie bad guy. I mean, he's got the being an asshole part down, but that's about it. Changing the Order's motivation fixes a lot of that. Or at least puts his daddy issues into perspective. As cool as a rebel without a cause may be, rebelling for a perceived good cause is better. Especially when genocide is concerned. But he still suffers some negative character development. He goes from literally laser-stoppingly good to being bested by a novice using force pull on a lightsaber stuck in the snow. What the hell happened? He's strong when it serves the story, but weak when it doesn't. The movie wants to have its cake and eat it too. And that's a sign of lazy writing. I'd have kept Kylo Ren a strong force user. If he can stop lasers at the beginning, he should be able to best a novice Jedi at force pulling a lightsaber, physical injury or not. And this is where we start talking about the biggest changes I'd make to the movie. It's also where we come back to talking about our deuteragonist, Rey. First thing, Rey needs to suck at things. Having her be a good pilot, force user, and lightsaber dueler just makes her seem like the OC in my fanfic. Conflict only happens so our heroine can show off how badass she is when she resolves it. Sorry, that's not very fun to watch. Or read, as the commenters on fanfiction.net have informed me. Thanks, guys. Rey should have no or very weak force powers. And if she has to be a pilot, I make her lucky at flying instead of a flying ace. Really, I'd make it so her only really good skill is that of a lightsaber wielder. Well, not specifically lightsabers, but fighting with melee weapons in general. She had that staff thingy at the beginning of the movie. They could have played it up a bit more. Show her using it to traverse dangerous terrain while scavenging for parts or something. Then when Finn gets attacked in the bazaar by stormtroopers, she can save his life and show off her combat prowess at the same time. This would also help set up Finn's motivation for later on too. Now I suspect Rey being a good pilot was only even thrown in because she's related to Luke. And Luke was a good pilot because he was related to Anakin. But since I can't prove this, I'll just pretend she has to be a good pilot for some other script-related reason. Either way, I don't think Rey being an ace pilot right away is good storytelling, nor necessary for her to be a good pilot in the future. See, both Luke and Anakin actually had backstories that explained their piloting abilities. Luke used to fly around Tatooine shooting womp rats like a douche with a BB gun, while Anakin engaged in pod racing, also like a douche. Rey has no reason to be an ace pilot, so it makes no sense for her to be one. Instead, if Rey has to be the one to pilot her and Finn off of Jakku, she should have had to rely on a lot more luck and teamwork and a lot less skill. This is what happens in the movie. Rey and Finn are under attack by stormtroopers and TIE fighters and need to escape the planet. They get aboard the Millennium Falcon and stage a daring escape. The TIE fighters won't let up, but our heroine outmaneuvers them and our heroes are able to down the enemies and celebrate. Admittedly, this scene was pretty fun and serves to set up Rey's abilities with a ship. Unfortunately, since all of Rey's scenes are only there to set her up as being an overcompetent heroine, it's unneeded and accomplishes nothing but to establish no harm will ever come to this character. Here's what should have happened. Rey and Finn are under attack by stormtroopers and TIE fighters and need to escape the planet. Remember, I'd never have this scene because I wouldn't just rewrite episode 4. But since they did, I'll stay true to the plot. As they run toward the Millennium Falcon, Finn asks Rey if she knows how to fly. Rey says she's read a few books on the topic, or implies some other comically insufficient means of learning a skill. Finn expresses a concern and says, "I've got a bad feeling about this," as fan service or something. Then the two of them proceed to narrowly evade the better-trained TIE fighter pilots through a combination of good fortune and teamwork, basically fluking their way into downing the TIE fighters. See, Rey doesn't do any other major flying after this scene. So if this is the height of her skill in this movie, it wouldn't matter. Then when Han sees her taking an interest in his ship later on, he can remark about how she has potential, good reflexes or something, possibly even the makings of a truly great pilot. Her earlier luck would then seem more like actual natural talent, or the will of the Force, or something, like her grandfather and father, see? It also leaves her someplace to grow into for the next movie. As to Rey's Force powers, there are two main places where they come up. When she's captured and mind probed by Kylo Ren, and in the final fight with Kylo Ren. First off, getting Rey captured was a good first move, especially if your goal is to retell Episode 4 with different characters. But the problem arises in that it doesn't serve any purpose. Rey frees herself and goes wandering around the Death Star 3. When Han and Finn show up, they just find her climbing a wall almost by pure chance on a base the size of a planet. This is a mistake. And I don't mean that in some caustic, snarky, asshole critic kind of way. I mean that in a writing 101 kind of way. Somewhere along the way, every writer hears the old adage, it's okay to have coincidences cause problems for the heroes, but it's not okay to have coincidences solve the problems for the heroes. Finding Rey just wandering around the base is a coincidence, one that likely resulted from, and I'm guessing here, a last-minute script rewrite, because there's no way a director as seasoned as J.J. Abrams would let this slip past, even if he does try to hide it behind a few jokes. Here's what happens in the movie. Kylo Ren tries to force probe Rey's mind, but fails because she's so much better at using the Force than him. In fact, she starts fucking with his mind instead. Ren leaves like a bitch and Rey uses her Force powers to Jedi mind trick a stormtrooper. She then escapes the room and happens upon Finn and Han by pure chance so the script can continue on. As near as I can tell, the only reason this scene happens the way it does is because it's taboo to have a damsel in distress. Of course, it's fine for Poe to need rescuing because he's a guy. Here's what should have happened. Kylo Ren starts to force probe Rey's mind, but has a phenomenal amount of trouble with it. He senses she has some kind of latent Force potential and is resisting. Just then, Ren hears about the upcoming Resistance attack, and/or Han and Finn's breaking into the base. Without the time he needs to appropriately mind probe Rey, he leaves her in captivity. Meanwhile, Finn, wanting to pay back Rey for saving his life on Jakku earlier, and maybe to prove himself to the doubting Resistance forces, volunteers for the dangerous mission of shutting down the force field on the Star Killer base. He also hopes to save his friend in the process. Han goes along too, seeking a confrontation with Kylo Ren. Finn and Han capture Captain Phasma and make her shut down the shields and take them to Rey. They release Rey, then strap Phasma down in her place, taking care of their prisoner and rescuing Rey at the same time. This echoes Episode 4 and the rescue of Princess Leia as well. again, for fan service. It also echoes the dogfight in the climax of A New Hope, when Darth Vader senses Luke's strength of the Force before the latter is even aware of it himself. Now for the climax of The Force Awakens. It's time to save Kylo Ren from his negative characterization and give him a much-needed boost in combat prowess. Here's what happened in the movie. Finn and Rey exit Starkiller Base and are confronted by Kylo Ren. Finn draws the lightsaber and fights Ren, but is ultimately bested. Rey uses Force Pull to take the lightsaber from Ren and proceeds to defeat him in combat. After suffering yet another humiliating defeat to Rey, Kylo Ren is saved only by the planet splitting apart. He probably goes off to his room to cry. It's boring because at no point in time did I ever think Rey was going to lose. Rey has already demonstrated she's better with the Force than Ren. It's hardly surprising for her to be better with a lightsaber too. If you disagree, ask yourself this. Were you surprised when Rey was the one the lightsaber flew to instead of Kylo Ren? Here's what should have happened. In my version, the outcome of this fight wouldn't change much, because Rey would be good with a lightsaber. Of course, because she hadn't demonstrated superior Force powers yet, the result is not a foregone conclusion. Finn and Rey exit the base and are confronted by Kylo Ren. Finn, coming off a high of just having saved Rey's life, the damsel in distress, mistakes this for his story and thinks he's going to be the hero. He draws the lightsaber and loses, badly. The lightsaber is knocked out of Finn's hand and Rey picks it up. Not with the Force. She then goes to stand up for her friend. Kylo Ren laughs. He bested her with the Force, he can best her with a lightsaber. The fight ensues and Kylo Ren finds he's actually not capable of beating Rey, especially not with his injury. Unable to keep up with Rey's lightsaber abilities and seeing as the planet is blowing up around them, Kylo Ren does a saving throw and Force pushes Rey back so he can make an exit. He leaves knowing they'll have this fight again, and then he'll be ready. Rey can then go and save Finn and the movie can conclude as it did. This way, Kylo Ren isn't neutered as a villain and the movie isn't internally consistent about his abilities. He can still come off as powerful enough to stop a laser, and there's no need for off-screen training to make him seem like a threat again. Because let's be honest, the biggest problem Episode 8 has now is how to make things look like a challenge for the heroes. Rey is super good and is only going to get better with training from Luke. Kylo Ren sucks at everything and can only hope to get better with some off-screen training. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that this off-screen training is going to lead to a complete reversal of fortunes, with the bad guys winning in the end, like in the end of Empire Strikes Back. Because, if you're going to rip off the originals, why stop at just one? And at this point, they really don't have any other choice but to rip off Empire. What else could they do? Blow up another Death Star? Have Kylo Ren and the Order suffer another humiliating defeat? Yeah, well, that'll get people on the edge of their seats. Now, I have to say, this movie isn't terrible. It's better than the prequels, but that's a pretty low bar. There's potential, but most of it is squandered on a recycled script and an over-reliance on fan service. There's a Millennium Falcon and Chewbacca and all the little things the fans want to see, but there's no real consistency or flow to the movie. The characters have fun personalities, but their bizarre motivations and variable abilities make it hard to root for anyone or care about the arcs they're going through. Overall, the whole thing feels like some kind of fanfic. And while that may be enough to placate the fans, it just isn't enough for me. And that's my view. My unpopular review. Thanks for watching.